congrats to AP Tone getting your votes in. Offensive Player of the Year is obviously a massive one because this normally goes to the person that isn't a quarterback because the quarterback normally going to win the MVP. We all assume Saquon Barkley is going to win this, but hey, could be anybody else. Could be Josh Allen not even being a finalist for the Offensive Player of the Year tells you a little something too about this entire voting process. Lamar Jackson, finalist for Offensive Player of the Year, finalist for NFL MVP as well, which is Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley, Joe Burrow, Jared Goff, Lamar Jackson. These are not in any order. These are just a list of the finalists. And then Defensive Player of the Year obviously was announced. Zach Bond getting in there. Shout out to him having a massive year. Myles Garrett, Trey Hendrickson, Pat Surtain II, and TJ White getting in there. And then Comeback Player of the Year. Also finalists were announced, and this is a big one. This is a conversation because Joe Burrow obviously injured, came back. J.K. Dobbins injured, came back. Christian Gonzalez
missed 13 games,
came back. Damar Hamlin, I think we all know what happened with it within the last 2 years, I guess. It wasn't last season. Sam Darnold, though, was active, I believe, for 17 games last year. So he didn't have any injuries, any sickness, any death, potentially, that is also on this list within the last 2 years. But he is on the Comeback Player of the Year finalist list. So let's go to AP Tone. Tone, why do you think that is the case? And what do you think inevitably ends up happening with this particular award?
So this over the last 2 years, I believe it was Geno Smith, and then Joe Flacco. Neither of those guys were coming back from injury. They were coming back from, they just weren't playing, whether it wasn't good, they were old, circumstances, situations happen. We all know when Joe Flacco won over Damar Hamlin, there was a lot of people talking. Even Joe Flacco said, hey, not Comeback Player of the Year. Damar Hamlin's Comeback Player of the Year.
Yeah, come back from what? Ubering my kids
Yes,
around his
exactly.
what he said.
So then there was the AP kind of put out earlier this year, the kind of how the award, the rule should have been taken. The spirit of the award is to honor a player who has demonstrated resilience in the face of adversity by overcoming illness, physical injury, or other circumstances that led him to miss playing time the previous season. Now, other circumstances, I guess you can take that however you want, but a lot of AP voters took the spirit of the award, overcoming like an injury, illness, something like that, not just not playing.
But he's a finalist. I see him as a finalist. Yeah. So not as many AP voters as we had thought decided to put the guy who didn't play just because he wasn't the starter, and then now he plays great into the Comeback Player of the Year. You AP people, are you guys all on the same page over there? What's going on?
It doesn't feel like it. I'm not allowed to reveal who I voted for yet, or the top five, I don't believe. But, I asked the AP about it and this, situation as far as Sam Darnold goes, and they said, everyone in the NFL is eligible for Comeback Player of the Year unless you're a rookie because you weren't in the NFL last year. But we hope the voters, take the spirit of the award as how it should.
Okay, so we should assume with that message being sent multiple times from the AP that although Sam Darnold is certainly a finalist here, and Tone won't give away his votes.
No, he won't.
But as somebody who's been very lucky enough to ride alongside an AP voter, they've changed this year. Like, this is a this year change thing. So whenever the sports books had Sam Darnold as the favorite to win the entire thing because of how he's playing, they were going off what previous awards were like. People were taking their bets. Sports books were accepting the bets. You name it. And then once again had to come out and say, hey, what the voters are being told is it's not like you stink, now you're good again.
Correct.
It's like, hey, did you go through some shit and now you're back? So we can assume that's what the award's going to be and who it's going to go to.
Yeah, and I tweeted it out earlier in the year when I saw that he was a favorite. And I said, I think the sports books, this is kind of misleading to people. A lot of people reply with that. Other circumstances are that he was on the Jets. The Jets drafted him. That's that's pretty big. Other circumstances,
classic.
Things like that.
I mean, the more we learn,
can't argue that.
the more we learn, it is
Correct.
tough circumstances.
I can't argue that.
Yeah, agreed. Brick Johnson comes in there, tells you stink. That's going to be tough to respond for.
Yeah.
It's like when you're playing Call of Duty and a guy in the lobby says something that hits a little bit too close to home. That's Brick Johnson football, And then I think Brick Johnson is a motivator. I think if we were to understand the story from the New York Times is athletic, he wants to celebrate people and everything. I assume he didn't just crush Sam Darnold, but I guess you could other circumstances into this guy was in a terrible situation.
You could if you wanted to not pay attention to the spirit of the award, sure.
But you have to. Like, this is a two-horse race. It's J.K. Dobbins and Joe Burrow. And I'm a Christian Gonzalez guy, but like J.K. Dobbins and Joe Burrow, unless I'm mistaken, haven't really won any All-Pro or anything this year. So like I feel like it's sometimes with these awards, like they're almost rewarding guys when they don't get rewarded in other places. Like Joe Burrow had an unbelievable season. Is he really going to win nothing? Like you would assume they're going to give him.
There's
something.
a chance Saquon wins nothing.
Yeah.
There's a chance.
That's why, to that point, that's why it's like, hey, he's going to win Offensive Player of the Year because he can't just.
Well, what if Josh Allen wins the MVP? Then Lamar Jackson wins nothing?
Yeah. There's a chance.
If Lamar Jackson wins the MVP, which all Pro Football Writers Association of America has deemed Lamar Jackson the MVP.
Yes.
I didn't do enough research on how much that matches up with the AP. I should have. First team All-Pro quarterback, though, Lamar Jackson, which is voted on by the same AP people that are voting for the awards. So let's assume Lamar Jackson's winning the MVP. So Josh Allen doesn't win the MVP again. He's not up for Offensive Player of the Year, right?
He's not. Yeah.
So Josh Allen has another 40-plus touchdown year, has led his team again, he won 3 rushing touchdowns, 3 passing touchdowns, week 13 or 14.
Lions.
First time ever that has happened to quarterback. Having the year he's having with the roster he's having, he's going to win nothing. He's going to end up with nothing in this entire thing. So
maybe the Super Bowl.
Bingo.
Which he'd say, hey, I don't need that other draft.
Well, just like Saquon would say as well, if the Eagles are able to do that. Chuck, everybody's talking about this Borgonzi quote and Brinker quote down there in Tennessee. Now, Borgonzi has been brought in as the general manager. Brinker is the president of football operation. Borgonzi is handling the draft and free agency. Brinker is the one that's going to cut it down to the final 53. They're very tight. They're on the same page. Brinker was on a local radio station with Ramon Foster and a few others, and this is what he had to say about that number 1 overall pick that they have. Are you going to trade it, or are you going to utilize that pick that you have down there in Tennessee? Here's the president of football operations for the Tennessee Titans, Chad Brinker.
Yeah, we got to look at all the options. But the one thing I will say, if there's a generational talent, you don't pass that up. You can't pass that up. And if we feel that there's a generational talent right there, what we call a blue player, a guy that is a franchise-type player, the player that tips the field in your favor every time they step on the field, like you cannot pass that up. But we'll also look at all the options, not only at the number 1 overall pick, but in all the rounds. I mean, we got to see what the value is. We got to see what's on the table. We got to, do what's best for the Tennessee Titans and helping us build a football team that can sustain over time. And I've emphasized how important the draft is, that the core of this roster is going to be built through the draft. We're looking at all those options.
Very interesting. He was brought in 2023. Callahan was brought in last year. Now the GM, Borgonzi, out of Boston's been brought in, this year. So everybody's at different times. Allegedly, Borgonzi and Brinker are on the same page. They'll be the ones creating the roster. What's that mean for Callahan? We shall see. But a once-in-a-generation type player potentially at number 1. Now, this has obviously sent ripple effects through it all, and we'll talk to Daniel Jeremiah in a second. Is that Travis Hunter is he talking about? Abdul Carter, who's the once-in-a-generation player that we're potentially missing or not thinking about? And how come every time they talk about quarterbacks, it's Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, insert name of quarterback, insert name of quarterback, insert name of quarterback, and there's never a Will Howard. What am I missing about Will Howard in this entire thing?
Ever since you told me to take a peek at him a week ago, 10 days ago, and I took a peek at him, and then I watched him, watch you guys on the Manning Cast. You guys crushed it again, obviously.
It was good to be on
the numbers speak for themselves, Pat.
Amen.
Yep. But anyway, I know you don't like any flowers being thrown at you guys. And
Thank you. Let's keep it moving. Yes.
But he was absolutely just incredible in that game, and he's played so well. And I don't know. I don't see it. He just the metrics were all there, right? He's 6'4", 235, 240 pounds, mobile enough. He can get out of harm's way. Quarterback runs, certainly accurate. Got the arm talent to make all the throws. Yeah, why not a big, smart, physical? I mean, and a dog, and a guy that apparently, like all those studs around him, like they love him. And they play for him. So that's the biggest thing, like generational talent. Brinker's talking about it like I got very lucky. No pun intended. When I got the job here in India, 2012. Andrew Luck sitting there, right? Yeah, we're going to pass on Andrew. No. Generational talent, to say the least, right? So if there's a guy there, and this may be the guy after they do the vetting process, I don't see why this guy, I think AP Tone, you got him where, in the 4th?
I got a couple times in the
That's what I'm saying. So we'll talk to Daniel Jeremiah about this.
What are we, So I don't know what I'm missing.
And me neither. And I've already set the table with Daniel Jeremiah. Like, hey, I just want to let you know there's some heat coming. Because all you draft experts have left this guy out. I just want to know why. He's liked by his teammates. He's big. He shows up on the biggest stage. And he was on our show just cool. He's one of the lads.
Awesome, yeah.
He's one of the lads. I don't fully get it. Now, granted, Shador can spin it, and obviously his dad is one of the greatest football players of all time, one of the greatest athletes of all time, and we've seen him have to grow, and he's been very mature for a while. I'm not saying anything against Shador. I'm not saying anything against Cam Ward. He's played a lot of football, obviously, went down to Miami, changed their entire culture, and did a great job this season, and he led an offense that was very explosive. Not saying anything about Cam, but just a lack of respect at all for Will Howard. It doesn't make any sense because he's being treated as somebody that's like 5'11". He's being treated as somebody that's like 5'10". Maybe he doesn't have the physical stats to be able to keep up with all the stuff he's been able to do on the field, but he's huge. He's gigantic. He can run. This one doesn't make any sense. And I guess it's going to be because he's surrounded by talent, but when he was at Kansas State his final year, he wasn't.
Yeah.
He was Big 12 Player of the Year. And that's over Quinn Ewers. That's over everybody at Texas. That's whenever, Oklahoma's in a Big 12. Obviously, West Virginia was in a Big 12, so somehow he won Player of the Year over everybody that was with the Mountaineers. It's like, this guy's a good player. He's played a lot of ball. Seems to be cool. I just want to hear from Dan Jeremiah. We'll talk to him in the next hour.
Well, and the surrounded by talent thing, like, sure, you can get that, but Shadur Sanders, they're talking about Travis Hunter being that generational player number one, and Shadur played with him. So I don't know why that isn't a conversation at all when it comes to him. And I believe some of the other wide receivers for Colorado, they're pegged to be drafted, second, third round too. So they're great players. And then you think about Cam Ward, like, sure, ACC, maybe he didn't go up against the best guys, but also he was thrown to, Restrepo. And Restrepo is considered to be
the greatest Miami. He has the most yards, most receptions, most touchdowns, I think, for a wide receiver in Miami history.
Yeah, and he's considered like one of the top slot receivers, And we've seen how some of these slot receivers, Lab McConkey, have done in the NFL. So it's not like he's throwing to slouches either. So it doesn't really make sense. But, that just happens with guys like that who transfer and then have one good year. And, you can throw Chip Kelly into that too.
He had two good years, though. That's what I'm saying. At Kansas State, he was like, he had Kansas State in it. And I guess the Big 12 doesn't get talked about that way, you know? I guess it doesn't. Even though Arizona State took Texas to the wire. Mm-hmm. It legitimately took them to the wire. They were the champion, came out of nowhere. BYU, I think, could have held their own against a lot of different teams. Big 12 obviously loses Texas and Oklahoma, and everybody thinks that they're a weaker conference or whatever. It's like, this dude was great at Kansas State. That's why Miami wanted him. That's why Ohio State wanted him. And then he goes into a system that is obviously more conducive for him to be a pocket passer because of all the weapons they have. He hasn't even really showcased his running. He started doing during the playoffs there, but like, I don't get it.
Maybe that's the thing. Maybe because of the evolution of the quarterback and the quarterback play, and you see the Lamar Jacksons and whatnot, the type of offense that people want to run. Maybe that's got a little bit of.
But he can move. He can move.
But I don't see him moving like those guys move, like Lamar moves, and some of these guys running the RPOs and the read option, the zone read.
Agree.
I see some quarterback runs, some traps, some powers. He's big. He can get the 3rd and 1s like Josh Allen.
Josh Allen's pretty good.
He is pretty good. Not bad.
Well,
Wyoming.
6'4", 240.
You also said it like them, like the whole Big 12 thing. Like he didn't play in that Big 12 that everyone's like. It's not like Texas and Oklahoma were in the Big 12, and he was the Big 12 Player of the Year. And also for all like the talent, you still have to show up. They beat 3 top 5 teams in a row when he was the quarterback. Like that. I don't know. I mean, I still think he's going to go to the combine and just absolutely light it on fire, not just in the interviews, but I think it's going to come out that he's a much better athlete than people give him credit for as well.
I think so, too. Jayden Daniels is the first rookie quarterback to have multiple playoff games with multiple passing touchdowns, and his 116.2 playoff passer rating is the best by a rookie quarterback in a postseason in NFL history. Wow. This guy's special, man.
Yes.
Him and Cliff Kingsbury seeing the field very well. Let's go to another one here. This one's about Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley is averaging 162 rushing yards a game in the 2024 playoffs, which is the most by a player in a single postseason in NFL history. Some historic players in this particular run.
He went for 150 and 146 in the games against Commanders this year. His over-under on rush yards in this championship game is 130, which is the highest over-under rush yards a player's ever had.
And here's a big one. Great stat there from Tone. The Eagles have the league's top-ranked scoring and total defense, including playoffs, entering conference championship week. Teams with the number 1 scoring and total defense entering a conference championship matchup at home are 4-0 over the last 20 seasons.
Jeez.
So it hasn't happened often, but when it does happen, normally very good for the team. You got a good defense, you're going to win games, especially whenever it matters.
Absolutely. Excuse me. I didn't mean to run her up, but pretty good, formula this time of year. is being able to run the ball, stop the run, and pack a defense, right? And Philly can do all that.
Okay,
To Tone's point, I mean, Saquon had 4 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns in each of those games as well.
Yeah.
Against the Commanders.
Run the ball, stop the run. That's
Run
what
the
everybody
ball,
says
stop
whenever
the
it
run.
matters. Especially in Philadelphia this weekend, it's going to be cold. Not that Washington isn't used to that, but it's going to be bad weather. Can you run the rock? You know, you don't have to put it through the sky, especially in bad weather. You can be able to run it. You're good. When the games matter, it's old school football. Always has been.
Yeah, and there are other stats about how the Eagles' defense held the Commanders to like 30-something rush yards or something along those lines. And when you think about Cosme, they're kind of starting guard in the middle of that defense or that offense, going up against the
Jalen Carter,
best D tackle in football, Jalen Carter. That's a huge mismatch for them.
Let's go to the AFC here from NFL Plus Premium Pro. The Josh Allen Patrick Mahomes playoff matchups have averaged 63.7 combined points per game. 5 points more than any other quarterback matchups that have occurred at least 3 times since 1950. They end up showing up in the biggest games, these two. The Josh Allen stats, although he's 0-3 in the playoffs against Patrick Mahomes, very good.
Yes.
He plays very well. This is like whenever people were bearing Kirk Cousins for so long in the primetime games, and you look at his stats, it's like Kirk actually balling. Just so happens to be playing against a great quarterback on the other side. Josh Allen, same situation here in the playoffs against Patrick Mahomes. Is this the year? Is this the year? Speaking of Patrick Mahomes is looking to join Tom Brady, 10, and John Elway, 5, as the only starting quarterbacks in NFL history to reach the Super Bowl 5 times. He's 29 years old. He's 29 years
Crazy.
old. Unbelievable. Josh Allen, after recording a career low, 22 design runs during the entire regular season. Josh Allen has recorded 8 designed runs for 35 yards and a touchdown in this year's playoffs thus far. Over the course of his career, Allen has averaged 3.8 designed runs per game during the playoffs, up from his regular season average of 2. Allen has also recorded 69.6 success rate. You get it. Whenever the games matter, they start running this guy.
Yeah.
He's tough to stop. And the Chiefs have gone 8 consecutive games without a giveaway, entering the AFC Championship game. That is the longest streak by a team without a giveaway since at least 1950, including the playoffs. Some historic stuff happening here in these playoffs this weekend, especially from the Chiefs as they look to do something nobody's ever done. Obviously, win 3 straight in the modern era. Josh Allen's looking to do something they've never done in the playoffs, which is beat Patrick Mahomes. And Patrick Mahomes is doing that nobody's ever done by the age that he is. We're talking about history all over the place for the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, no question about it. Like you mentioned, 4-1 in the regular season. Josh Allen is, 4-1 against Mahomes, 0-3 in the playoffs against Mahomes. But to your point, you said, okay, he's got to go up against Patty Mahomes, Hall of Fame head coach and Andy Reid, right? Hall of Fame defensive coordinator in Spags. So there's Hall of Famers all over the place, and who are you going to put your money on? Who are you going to trust in a game like this at Arrowhead in those elements?
AQ Shipley says don't think about putting money on that offensive line for Kansas City. AQ says this Kansas City offense, this is what he's saying, not me. I'm just telling you what AQ's saying.